Today's landscape portion of Inspired to Paint was all about the use of a dramatic lighting situation and how to create a distance with light and shadow and creating very strong value patterns that all hold together. This was a really loose, fun, playful piece, and I hope everybody enjoys it, and I hope it leaves you inspired to paint. Our lesson today is going to be all about a dynamic light source, like something that's unusual, really strong light and shadow. And I picked an image that I took from Mississippi, and everything is in shadow up front and everything is in light in the back because it was starting to be evening light. So most of the time I tell you everything as it comes close is warm and gets cool as it goes back in space with the atmosphere. This is going to be the opposite situation. And scientifically, if you want to look at it that way, it's because it's evening light and it's not as cool. The light is not as cool. It's slightly warmer. We're right at that alpenglow light though. So it could go either way. But today what I'm going to do is put the cool colors and the shadow colors up front. And then I'm going to put the warmer colors as they go back to the back. So a little different than what we expect, but it'll work out. Everything, remember, is relational. Everything is the relationship to each other. We could flip it if we wanted to. It might not work quite as effectively, but we could still make it believable. I'm going to go with the cool in front and the warm in the back and that alpenglow sky. So today I am using, of course, my Utrecht white. I'm going to use a limited palette again. You'll see the blog about our trip to Emil Carlson in New York City. And in that blog, I'm going to explain a lot about his texture and his limited palette. That's what I'm going to use again today. I'm finding that the limited palette is just helping me so much with creating those beautiful grays. And by limited palette, I'm not saying that you have to only use these specific colors each and every time. You get to pick what those limited colors are going to be. You just have to stick with them. And you have to learn how to mix the grays with the colors that you've got. So I have got a cad yellow light and I've got a cad yellow deep. I have got quinacridone magenta and I have a quinacridone burnt orange. These are my reds. My blues, I've got an ultramarine blue and I've got a cerulean blue. With my greens, I've got this beautiful bright green lake that is made by Michael Harding Paint. And I really like it. It's got a really strong tinting strength though. And then a sap green. And then my moderator, as always, is my raw umber violet. And that's it. My white, that's it. That's all I'm going to allow myself to use. Now, when I pick a limited palette and I finish the painting, there's always a possibility I might need just a little bit of something else at the very end to give some snap or some pop. But I'm going to, right now, through the whole painting, I'm going to stick with that limited palette and see what happens. Okay, so the image that we are working on today has got really strong shadow and really strong light. So on a value scale of 1 to 10, 1 being white, 10 being black, most of the painting is going to be 1 through 5, and then some of the painting is going to be 6 through, I won't say 10 because I don't usually use a 10, 6 through 8.5, maybe a 9. So I have to decide right off the bat which one is going to be the dominant. Is it going to be a dominantly high-key painting or is it going to be a dominantly low-key painting? Myself, I've made a challenge to myself that the next whole year's worth of paintings are going to be a little more in the high-key range. That doesn't mean I'm going to make you do it. You get to do what you want. And as I am teaching, I won't necessarily stick to my rules that I've set aside for myself. But with this lesson, I'm going to. So it's going to be a primarily high-key piece with a bit of shadow. So I go back and I look at the image. And the image, as I'm looking at it, is predominantly high key with shadow in the front. So that's where I make my decision. Now I'm going to do my lights, mediums, and darks. And as you can see, I have a notan that I've made up of this that has got a pretty good idea of lights, mediums, and darks. And I'm going to jump into that right off the bat. Just make basic, simple shapes. Well, here's the painting in the frame, which really kind of helps you evaluate all of the values because it gives you a parameter around it. This was really fun to paint. Not saying it's completely finished, but I sure like where it's headed. Really fun to be dramatic with that light and really change those values. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it leaves you inspired to paint.